Welcome to the DevLaunch Podcast, bringing you insights from industry experts on how to grow the digital agency you love. We're diving deep into the world of video content today with Alex Sheridan, one influencer taking center stage in LinkedIn's explosive video trend. Ever think about how video could be your 24/7 sales rep or how to build content strategy from scratch? Alex shares his journey from zero to video hero and drops invaluable tips that every digital agency owner needs to hear. Skip this episode at your own risk. Well, Mr. Sheridan, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I was really excited when you said that you were down for recording.
To be here, Tony.
Yeah, this is, for those of you guys don't know, if you haven't already had a chance to check out any of Alex's video content, it's been blowing up as of late. So I see it in my video feed, my LinkedIn feed all the time. So I was like, I gotta ask some questions, kind of pick his brain on like what's going on with video, what's the state of video right now. So that's what we're gonna be getting into in this episode. But Alex, I've been doing a little bit of my own research, looking at your YouTube channel, looking at some of your podcasts and stuff. And something that I came across that I was like, I learned a lot from was a video you posted way back in August of last year. So not really like that long ago, but long ago in like social media terms.
Yeah.
But the title of the video was essentially, or I should say that the purpose of the video was to talk about what would you do if you had to build your LinkedIn from scratch. And you gave some of your ideas there. Would you mind getting into that a little bit, unpacking like what would you do if you had to hit the reset button and start over on LinkedIn? What is that immediate term plan that you would have?
Yeah. And the hook was something like that. It was like, if I had to start over and build my LinkedIn following from scratch, no brand, no followers, this is exactly what I would do. And really, I get into a couple of things. One, I'll start off by saying there's the short-term social selling success that you can have on LinkedIn that doesn't involve content as much, although it warms things up. But that involves getting on things like Sales Navigator and traditional LinkedIn and engaging with potential customers that are posting content on there, which you can search by posted content in the last 30 days. You can engage with them, send them connection requests, video DMs, personalization, not automated. That is what I would do short term if I was trying to win customers or book meetings with potential customers very quickly. And then the other half is building what we call brand, right? And for the most part, it's personal brand. So I would go look at my profile and say, does my profile, a lot of times when I go to founders' profiles or CEOs or companies, their LinkedIn profiles, they're just messaging's kind of all over the place. It's not really clear. Maybe it's like it's too vague, or it's almost too much industry jargon where it's like really hard to decipher. Like, I'm sorry, what do you do? And like, who do you really help? And why are you different? What makes you unique versus a lot of the other companies in your industry? So I go to the profile first. I make sure that the messaging really speaks to my ideal customers, because that's going to get them to want to have a conversation with me or take the next step. The second piece of the profile is where are we taking people? Is there a plan that when I get on the LinkedIn profile, do you have what I call paths to conversions? Meaning in that featured content section, the tab up top of your profile, are you trying to take people to your website? And if so, what are you trying to get them to do there? What options do they have there? Are you trying to get them to book a call with you? Is there a lead magnet in place? Like, what's the kind of the funnel? Even though I hate to use that word because it sounds like sleazy and salesy, It's really just about, hey, a customer is going to go through a customer buyer journey with you. We want to make sure that's a very pleasant experience, and that we give them options and gives us the highest likelihood to build trust and credibility with them. And then I get into, after I built my profile, I'd get into creating content, which is now the game has changed with video. So that video has a lot of good things in it from a year ago, but it's also, there's some new things that we're updating that I got a video coming out next week where I'll talk about that too. But it's going to be heavy video with the LinkedIn TikTok style video feed that's out there, along with some picture content and some other types of content too. And so I talk about how to build that out, a content strategy for LinkedIn. And then lastly, it goes back into the engagement, social selling, commenting, connecting, messaging.
I love that. I imagine with your initial point, you had said, kind of that social selling might be like what's really needed for the 0 to 1 kind of step in your building up your profile back again. I imagine from my own experience and from what I've seen my clients and prospects talk about, I think part of the issue is that we're not really clear on who it is we're trying to reach. Would you mind maybe sharing a little bit about your experience? Maybe you were talking with your founders, or just even in your own experience where clarifying your ICP has been maybe a bit of a challenge?
So in my case, we work with 7 to 8 figure B2B companies. So most of the time, they're pretty clear on their ICP. What they struggle with is how do we differentiate?
Mm,
We have a company that maybe it's a staff and recruiting company, maybe it's a management company, maybe it's a service provider, whatever it is. How do we differentiate and become a unique value prop for our competitor or our customers to where they see us and go, well, you guys are doing something totally different. I haven't seen this approach before to solve that problem. Similar to how we're very different in the marketing niche, where we're kind of like the anti-marketing agency. We help companies build their own internal teams. That's very different. It's kind of radical. It's not what most companies do. So it is more about helping them find that. So I don't spend a ton of time like, let's figure out who your customer is and, what their pain points are. And I mean, we do cover that. We do have to go through those exercises to say, who is the customer? I would say that maybe they're clear in their mind on them, but they're not clear in terms of how they think, their insecurities, some of the most common questions they have, what really are beneath their pain points that they really struggle with. So I think to your point, maybe they may know the client, but they don't know the deep level. They know the
mhm,
surface level, and
mhm.
you need to get to the deeper level stuff for the content, for the branding, for the messaging.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Well, and it's an interesting paradigm that you're talking about here, right? Because you working with 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs and founders, that the marketing needs have evolved slightly, right? When you're the 0 to 1 crowd, you're the under $1 million in revenue crowd, you're still trying to figure product market fit. And so a lot
Yeah.
of that is like, who even is my ideal client? Whereas once you get to 7 and 8 figures, you typically know who they are, even though you might need to do a little bit of refining so you get some of those psychographics like you're talking about.
Well,
Um,
and even early on, it's just talking to customers. It's talking to
mm,
the people that you're taking calls with, that you're servicing, and say, why did you sign up for us? What was the experience like?
mm.
What would you fix, or what would be one thing you would change if you could go back in time and like start this process over with? What's one thing that we offered that you felt was not really needed in the process?
Mm.
How many other competitors or who else did you look at before you signed up with us? Like it's really just going to the source and talking to the customer in a lot of cases. I mean, if you have no customers and you got to talk to prospects, but a lot of it's just having honest conversations.
Yeah. Well, and I think to the point you brought up earlier, like part of social selling involves commenting on, people's posts. Sometimes we look at that and it's like, oh, but this feels sleazy because it's like I'm just going in it to see if I can find a customer. But like to your point of like you don't know them until you've had conversations with them. So look at the commenting on their post as a way of getting to know your potential ideal clients.
Yeah. I mean, you got to, if you're not willing to talk to people and start conversations, then you probably should reconsider being an entrepreneur or a salesperson. Or like, it's going to be a long, tough road if you're not willing to like start a conversation.
That's very, very true. That's very true. Well, and you've been doing this now for a few years. Did you start back in, was it 2020 that you started this? 2021?
Yeah. Yep. I actually left my full-time job, my corporate job in July of 2020 and started doing this full-time then. I did a side hustle for about 6 months previously and then, built up it to a place where I could replace my income and made the move.
That's awesome. I mean, so as you've grown, I mean, your team has continued to grow and expand. So I know you guys are doing really great things. You have results to show for it. When you first started off, like, did you know right out the gate you had that 7 to 8 figure founder kind of ICP, or was it still a little bit unclear?
No, dude, I was all over the place. I mean, when I first started, so I was working my full-time job back in 2019 doing staffing and recruiting sales. I was a B2B salesperson for about almost 10 years. So I knew sales really well. I thought I was actually going to be a sales coach or a consultant. So I started posting content around sales and leadership very early on in LinkedIn and Instagram. And then I kind of realized the power of LinkedIn video and just content and video in general. And I was like, wait a second, there's something to this. I should really lean into this. And I kind of enjoy doing it. And I think it's probably going to be the future, it seems like. And so let me maybe see if I can get good at this and then help other people with it. But no, I was all over the place, dude. I didn't know who I was serving. I didn't know what my message was. I was inconsistent. I didn't really have a plan. I didn't really have a path to convert people to customers. It was,
Hmm. And I mean, I can say this because I was watching some of your initial videos on YouTube, and it was like vlog style. It
yeah,
was raw. It was
it
very
was.
real. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think with that, it's fun to see the progression because I think you can kind of build that in public, and then people can look back and see like I'm just like you, and also I've
Yes.
figured it out, and I figured out kind of some of the success factors that it takes to build this thing and to grow the video side. So if I'm hearing you right, video wasn't necessarily even your background. It was just something you kind of
Hmm.
discovered and then wanted to kind of go a little bit deeper into.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back to June 2019, I really hadn't posted a single video in my entire life. I did a few handful of YouTube videos years ago, but then deleted them all because like I sucked at it and it didn't work. And like I had no clue what I was doing and I was working my full-time job. But really, for the most part, I didn't know anything until really early 2020, to be honest.
So with that, I guess one thing I'm curious about is when you first started off, were you like, okay, at least I know I'm going to do something video related, or was it just like a general marketing agency that you were developing?
It was LinkedIn video. It was LinkedIn and then video content specifically for LinkedIn. So basically, I just had optimized my profile, as they say. I'd made a decent profile, although I'm sure if I looked at it now, back then, I'd be like, dude, that profile's terrible. But in my mind, it was okay. And I was making some videos. They weren't good either. I knew how to DM people because I knew sales. So I knew how to put together enough to where I could say, hey, if you have no clue what to do on LinkedIn, are you willing to pay me a couple $100 and I'll show you what I know? I'll show you how to create videos. I'll show you how to, do your profile. I'll show you how to social sell and start booking meetings. I just leveraged what I knew. And then I found success with a couple of people who were like, hey, I won a couple of clients from what you taught me. This is really great. I'm like, amazing. And then I started a LinkedIn video boot camp and I started to really like put some formats and structure around it. Then I had an online thing through Kajabi and the community. And we really started to see a lot of people have success. And at that point I was like, cool, I need to raise my rates and really like build this into a company and see how far I can take it. And so it's really evolved over the years, where now, we work with 7 to 8 figure companies now because we're helping them build out their content teams. And we have a team ourselves. We're able to do a lot more that I couldn't do back then. I mean, if you would have put me in front of my clients now and said, hey, here's what we want you to do. If you would have told me to do it in early 2020, I would have been like, I mean, I'll try, but it wouldn't be nearly what we can do today.
That's really cool. I mean, it's great to hear that progression. You had said something. I want to pull a thread on. This was a little earlier. You'd said you guys are the anti-marketing agency. Mind unpacking that a little bit?
Yeah, dude. And even it's funny because just recently today we updated some things on our LinkedIn profiles and we got some new things that are going to go on the website. But we've been doing this for quite some time, which is that we believe that you should say goodbye to your marketing agencies and create your own content and video team, social media team. And so our belief is that marketing agencies worked for a long time before short form video and the more modern day social content that we have now and the podcasting and that kind of stuff. Because, I think 5-10 years ago and plus, marketing was doing assets, designs, website, SEO, paid ads, a lot of picture, a lot of copy, a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And that's fine. And I'm not saying they still can't do some of that, but now it's shifted to where it's a lot of it is video. It's getting the CEO or founder and the execs and the team to create content. It's faster paced. It's more social feeds versus behind the scenes. And so it's more front facing. So it takes a different skill set altogether to be able to win in today's day and age with content and marketing. So when you're working with an agency, what we've seen is typically that content's not going to be as good because having someone do it all for you versus you owning it internally as a company, you're going to do a better job as long as you've got coaches and experts that are helping you get to where you want to go. But even if you didn't, I still think you would. It's less costly over time because now we're empowering companies to build their own teams versus them have to rely on a marketing company for the rest of their life. And then it's just faster and the technology's at your fingertips. We record with smartphones. We have simple mics. We have AI now that can do a lot of things for us. Like you just don't need that big overhead of a marketing agency. I mean, we have one client where like they still are using partly their agency, but they brought us on just to identify the gaps. I mean, it was taking them weeks to get a video out. Like it was slow. The videos that came out, they didn't have a hook in the first couple of seconds. They were more promotional. It's just like all over the place, man. So we really believe the future is for companies to build it internally instead of outsourcing the content.
So you see it more as like a done with you and a DIY model where you're the educator, you're the coach and the consultant, but you're not necessarily getting involved in the done for you type service.
Exactly. Like they'll need a video editor, but we have a stable of video editors that we work with that we continue to build that pool up. And so instead of us doing the editing for them, we give them a video editor. Let's say it's in the Philippines, for example, and they pay that and work with that editor directly. And that's built into our service fee. So if they work with us for 6 months, a year, whatever it is, even if it was only 3 months, we part ways. They got that editor. That's not ours. So it's a very customer-centric model where it's focused on empowering the companies to be able to find long-term success with their own teams.
I I really love that. And I think I could be wrong about this, but I wonder if part of that is influenced by your experience working in the staffing
Staff
agencies.
recruiting, yeah, it's good that you said that. I don't think I necessarily went into it thinking that, but I've thought about that many times where I'm like,
Hmm.
it's kind of good I have this background of staffing and recruiting and hiring because it's kind of like it's really what we are is a people development and hiring company.
Yeah.
We develop the founders, CEOs, executives, their teams. They bring on a content director, whether that's in person or a social media manager in the Philippines or editor, wherever they're at, and we help train those people and get them up to speed to where they're high performers.
I love it.
So yeah.
And also, I mean, so I've got a little bit of background with working with staffing and recruiting agencies, just like internally and whatnot. And the biggest challenge I remember facing or feeling, even being the talent that was being sent out there, is I always just felt like at some point I wish I had a direct relationship with the clients I was working with, because I'm the one.
Right.
At the end of the day, I'm the one providing all the value or the vast
Right.
majority of the value. They're just the relationship connector. And
Right.
so I think it's like the fact that you guys have chosen to go the model of basically being matchmaker, but then standing back and letting the two of them just connect directly. I think it really is very customer centric.
It is, man. When you think about long term and positioning that company for success for years to come, it's a no brainer. I mean, you have your own internal team and system versus relying on some other company that who knows where they're going to be in a couple of years, or if your budgets get slashed or something like that, or you're having a rough 6 months, like you got your own internal nimble team, you're able to adjust. Where if you're working with an agency, you might say we have to stop, and then you have no content.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That is really, really good. So I want to play a devil's advocate position here for just a minute. And this would be to the naysayers to that business model, right? So
Mm-hmm.
these people would say something to the effect of, it's great that you have the engagement that you do, or that you're working, at the rate that you are to help educate these people. But what happens when they're fully functional and they're ready to go and they don't need that coaching and consulting anymore? Like, do you lose out on that revenue, or how do you see that going and continuing to grow your business?
It's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up because before you started talking, I was like, I probably should explain how the challenge of this was how do we build a recurring revenue model out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a couple things on this. One, when you say you're in a good place to go or you're kind of all set, you're ready, like that is what does that really mean, right? Like, because 3 months in, you could be in a good place. But with social content, there's always other things that you can tackle. There's always more content you can put out. There's more fuel on the fire. There's podcasting. There's YouTube you can get into. There's TikTok. There's LinkedIn. There's email. Like there's a lot of different things that you can do, and there's levels to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So someone may be, and even for me, I'm here, but then there's levels above me, right? Where it's like, man, I want to get to the next level, the next level. So I think you got to look at it like, if we're spending a few grand, let's just say they're spending 6 to 8 grand or for whatever it is a month. If we take that and tally it up for 6 months, and is that worth our time and money to do that? If we're winning clients and building the brand that we want to build in the marketplace, and we win just 1 or 2 clients every 6 to 12 months, which they're going to be doing more than that, then that more than pays for that service. And so you almost look at it like this is a company that's going to continue to level up our people, make sure that we put out the best possible content we can, build the best possible brand we can, and start really being a core system that draws in inbound leads for our entire business. Why would we not continue to pay that company as long as they're delivering on their end of the bargain and they're getting our people and our content to perform at a high level? So there's that. And then there's also, so that will keep people on for months, if not years, just saying, hey, we've got the budget and it's not way out of our reach. Why would we not retain these people if they're doing great results for us? Like, let's keep it going. What else can we do? What other levels can we go? And then there's some companies where, they get the 3 or 6 months, 8 months, and they say, I think we're good. And this is really what we came here to accomplish with you. And we feel good. And maybe we'll work together in the future. But right now we're kind of set to take this thing. And that's cool too. Right? Because then guess what happens with that customer? I say, perfect. Well, hey, since we're not going to be working together for a long term, and we've had so much success together, would you mind sending us to 2 to 3 other founders, CEOs of 7 to 8 figure businesses, or introducing us to your business group? And I would ask this throughout the relationship, but definitely at the end as well, to say, let's keep this going with another company. Who's somebody else I would want to go through this? You had such a great experience, and we've got you to a place where now you feel comfortable to go on your own and find success long after this. That's an amazing feeling, right? Yeah, it is awesome. Who else wants to experience this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just think when you do good by people and your models really build around the customer, like it comes back to you. It just always does.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. And amen to all of that. And I think
That
there,
really quickly, that just like, it's such a great question. Cause like that was and the internal dialogue I was going through in my head before we pivoted to this model last year was because we were doing some of the done for you stuff and revenue was going up. And I was like, this doesn't feel right to me. Like, this doesn't feel right in my heart and in my soul. And even in my mind, I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. I'm not happy doing it. And I don't think it's the right thing for companies to do. Tony, it's almost like for me, it's like, I don't have an option. This is just what I believe, dude. This is just like simply what I believe companies should be doing in my heart and soul. And I want to help them get there. And I'm seeing the power and witnessing the power of this. And I've done it myself. And now for dozens and dozens of other companies, like I couldn't imagine coming in and be like, let us do all of it for you. Like it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be as good.
I love that. And you're doing right by your customers because of it. And
Yeah.
I think the point that you made was really, really good is when you are making it about them and not about how can I have it the easiest and have recurring revenue to get my valuation up, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. When you make it about your customer does tend to have your back, right?
Right.
Like they had a great
so
experience.
Much, dude.
Not this is like somewhat unrelated, but you brought it up, and I think it's really important that our listeners are hearing this. But even the approach you took about when you have that instance where you've got a client who's come to a point where they're like, you know what, we got what we needed, we accomplished what we wanted, and now we think we're ready to enter engagement. You don't just leave it there. You ask for that introduction. Hey, what are 2 or 3 other potential people like you who might benefit from this service as well? I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly, man. You should really always be asking that, but I think sometimes we all forget, myself included. But I think at that period where you're going to engage, that would be one more time I would ask that question and just bring up the fact that, hey, how's this experience been? And it's been great. And what's some feedback you have for us? Where can we get better? But then, hey, we'd love to keep this going with other companies that that would like to experience the same thing. And they're happy to refer to you. I mean, a lot of times we don't even have to ask. They just give us referrals because they appreciate the things that we're doing, and they know that it's all for them. And I think, Tony, I also think, where's the market going? Well, I think you're going to see a lot less marketing agencies and a lot more companies try to do it internally. I want to be on the right side of history with this, and we want to be one of the pioneers to build this out. So when everyone starts moving over, it's like, yeah, we've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. We've got it down pat. Where a company's going to try to move over and do this from zero, it's going to be very tough. It's going to be challenging because it was tough for us. It took us months to figure out, how do we make this work long term? What's the process? How do we train their people? Like, it's a whole different ball game when and I'm not just talking about like you could hire like a LinkedIn coach or something, right? Where they would teach like, here's how to write copy and LinkedIn posts and stuff like that. This is like building infrastructure in a company. It's a different skill set.
That is so great. You're giving me some thoughts, because initially when I started my business, it was founded on that principle, which is education. I mean, our tagline for our business is literacy is power. It's this idea that like, I want to educate you to be able to do it yourself. So you're giving me some ideas. I might be inspired.
What's good, man? What's funny is like I started that same way as a coach, educator, right? With my LinkedIn video boot camps and stuff. Then I got away from it because I figured, I can't scale a business like this. I got to do done for you stuff. And then realize, no, you actually can scale a business educating and coaching. You just got to be good at it and have processes and systems and good revenue models and offerings and things like that and have the right clients. You absolutely can do it. And guess what? The relationship you have as a coach, as a mentor versus an agency, totally different with the customer. As a coach or mentor, they look up to you and like, thank you so much. We're so grateful. Like they really appreciate you coming in and transforming their company, and that they kind of own the action a lot of times. Like they have to show up and do this stuff, but you're guiding them versus the agency where they just do everything. And then things come back. Why is this wrong? Why is this, this edit's wrong. This is wrong. I don't like this. Miserable. It was just absolutely miserable.
Man, that's so good. Well, I want to pivot slightly. We're still in the realm of video because that's what our whole episode's about. But I want to talk about podcasting for a minute. In some of your other content, you discussed about building the value of building deeper relationships through podcasting. So would you mind unpacking that for us a little bit more?
Well, it's as simple as this. I mean, if you're going to have a like, I believe that one, you should try to make a great podcast should be the priority number one. I think some people are like, I'm going to do a podcast and invite a bunch of clients on there. And they're like, hopefully I'll win some business, and the podcast sucks. I mean, look, that could be a model, that could be an avenue, and you could just use it to drive business. That's fine. I really set out to build a great podcast for founders and CEOs. That was my number one thing. But what happens when you have someone on your podcast, if you do it strategically, and let's just say, for our example, right, it's founders. It's called Founder Talk Podcast. We have founders on the show. We try to bring out their unique expertise and their insights and their strategies and share them with our audience so they can learn more about their story as a founder, but really more about their unique area that they can pass down value to the audience listening. So whether it's branding or whether it's psychology or whether it's marketing, whatever that unique thing they have, or they scaled the company up to 50 million and then sold it. We want to teach people how'd you do that and what'd you learn along the way. But when you sit down with someone for an hour, ours is in person, but it doesn't have to be in person. You have that before the podcast starts. You got that rapport, right? Like we chatted a little bit before this, right? Then you spend time with that person. And if you do a good job as an interviewer, which most people do, that's a good experience for them. And then you have all these touch points afterwards. When the podcast ends, you've got the content. We do a trailer teaser for every episode. You have micro clips. You have touch points. Hey, I really loved you having on the podcast. Da, da, da. And you'll get referrals that way. You'll get other guests that way. So to me, it's just like, it goes back to old school, fundamentals. I was in sales. So it's like the more intentional time that you spend and meetings that you have with potential customers, the more likely you are to win them over. So podcasting is one way to do that. You have put on a good podcast, you have a solid guest on there that could be a potential customer. And if you do 10 of those, probably 2 or 3 are going to turn into at least deals now in your pipeline, more than likely.
Yeah. That has definitely been, honestly, the case for me as well. And I think the point you made initially was a really good one, which is make sure that whatever content you're creating is actually like worth listening to.
Right. That's what I think. Right. Yeah.
So I had a aha moment because I was listening to some of these other people who specialize in podcasting specifically, like that's their whole focus, their service area. And they were giving examples of bad examples before they told you that it was a bad example. And I was like, oh, yeah, I do that. Oh, yeah, I do that. I do that. And they're like, yeah, this is terrible. And I was like, oh, no,
yeah.
I'm that guy. So that was season 1 for me. I loved the people I spoke with. We had great conversations, but it wasn't necessarily something that was rich for the listeners. But that's why we wanted to kind of do a refresh for season 2, is we wanted to really go into something that we think the listeners could actually learn something from. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think that's got to be central to the podcast.
Well, you definitely look, it's like anything you learn as you go through it, right? So you figure out the things you did wrong from season 1 and apply them to season 2. I think one of the biggest things I've learned from a podcast standpoint is really now what I do. In the beginning, I'd have a founder on and whatever. And I think in the beginning, you're just trying to get guests on and get the reps in and like build the show out. So you got to be a little bit more flexible. You're not going to get like the greatest guests probably in your first 3. But I was a little bit more like, let's get a founder on and let's talk about their journey. What do they learn? How can we pass it down to the audience? Now I think about, what is the one skill set that this person has as a founder that I want to drill down on for the next hour? Versus saying like, we could talk about your story and are you happy as a founder? What's your personal life? What this, or you built a company, how'd that go? I was kind of like, I would go down so many different angles versus saying, hey, you're a branding expert. How the hell do you build a brand in 2024? Mm-hmm. And what should I be doing for the company brand versus the personal brand? Mm-hmm. Right. Or, hey, you're a psychologist specialist and you coach CEOs on how to get out of their own heads and build better teams. What is going on with this? Or how would you lead a team if you got a toxic player on the team? I'm really figuring out what is the one skill set or area of expertise this person has. And I'm saying that the show is about this. It's not to say that we won't get into some other stuff, but it's really built around that one thing. That was an unlock moment for me. Yeah.
Well, you even just think about when you go to then write the title for the episode or the show notes for it. It's like when you're all over the place, like literally, you just take
hard to title it.
It's really hard. You give it to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT doesn't even know how
They're
to
like, dude, he was all over for an hour straight. How do I know what to title this thing? Yeah, exactly. Right. Versus you can just say, hey, the CEO whisperer or a branding expert exposes the truth around da-da-da. Like, it's so easy, man. Like, yeah, you make a great point. You make everything else easier when you're dialed in and intentional.
100%. Yeah. So let's just maybe for a moment speak to the people who they're considering doing a podcast because they like the approach of being able to have conversations with people who would otherwise never want to hop on a call. Because let's be honest, who really wants to go for another coffee chat for 30 minutes with a person you've never met before who's going to try to sell something? So they want to go down that route, but they are really overwhelmed or inundated by the idea of going deep into a topic. Like what do you say to somebody who is having that concern?
I would say, first and foremost, with any type of content or medium that you do, if you're going to do podcasting or YouTube channel, that takes a lot of work too, whatever it is. Well, let's just say it's podcasting for this example. Make sure that it's going to be something that you somewhat enjoy. Because what's going to happen if you don't enjoy it, and like, I heard podcasting is a great idea, and like, I heard I can win clients, and then you do 5 episodes and like nothing miraculous happens, and you go, I get another guest on and interview people. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So you're not going to stick with it. So I would say if you're having if you're like, man, I'm kind of excited about this, but I'm a little nervous, I've never interviewed people. That to me is good. That means you're probably about to grow. That's a good sign. You're getting uncomfortable. There's nothing wrong with that. That's your survival brain telling you, be safe, don't take chances, don't, survive. And you just need to say, hey, thank you for being here, but I got this one. But I think if you're sitting there saying, man, it sounds miserable to interview people every week, and I just don't want to have those conversations, I'm not into it, do not do it.
Yeah.
Do something else. Maybe you get in an email, maybe you get into a short form video, maybe you build a YouTube channel. There's a lot of other ways to do it, right? So to me, I started this podcast, Founder Talk, because I was really excited to interview other founders, and I love going deep with people and having really like good conversations where the audience can learn from. It was fun for me. I mean, I almost did it for that reason first and thought about the business stuff second. So that's what I would say.
That's really good. Yeah, I have had conversations like this with some of my clients too, and just as they are considering doing a podcast, that is a really important question to ask. Is like, do you actually think you'd enjoy it though? Because people are gonna feel that when they listen to it, when your guests experience it, they're gonna notice that you're just like reading off a script and you're really having a hard time. So don't do that.
And you just won't stick with it. Yeah, I promise you won't stick with it because it's going to take time to build, and there's a lot of work that goes into it, even if you have people on your team that do some of it. But it's still, you just showing up week after week and have interviewing people. You got to be mentally prepared, and you got to have good questions. You got to have done some research, unless you want to just have a shitty show, So it's like, if that doesn't like excite you a little bit, yeah, I'd reconsider it because there's other ways to do it.
So Alex, we talked about this earlier, but you are blowing up on LinkedIn. You're all over the place. I think I see you probably 4 or 5 times a day easily. So one of the things I've heard you talk about is how video is your 24/7 salesperson, and it seems it's very much true for you. So I want you to speak for a moment to who I would consider to be one of my main audiences, which are software development agency owners. These are people they're really technically smart. They're very, very smart, bright people, but they're not always the most comfortable in front of camera. And I know that you've worked with people like this before, so that's why I wanted to ask you about this. Do you think video is still worth pursuing for them, even if they don't think they have the talent necessarily to be on video?
Well, I think the thing to consider here is when people say, I don't have the talent to be on video, or like, I'm not good on video. How do you know that? Like, and who is really the judge of that? Because it's really not for you to say, it's really for your audience to say. So a lot of times I'll say, I don't think I'm good on video. I don't really have the talent for that. Or I'm kind of like awkward or shy. And I'm like, cool. But do you realize there's a lot of different types of personalities? So if you look at like YouTubers, podcasters, there's the very quiet, kind of subtle kind of interviewers, and then there's like a little bit loud people that like Joe Rogan and stuff that, they go a little bit crazy sometimes. Like, you've got a broad spectrum of personalities on video. So I think first and foremost, I would just say, try not to eliminate yourself out of video just because you've never done it before. It's going to be a little bit awkward in the beginning, and maybe your personality isn't, extroverted, because you don't need to be. You absolutely can be introverted. I would say that would be the thing I would think about first, is that let your audience decide if you're good on video or not. And the other thing is, look, could you have somebody else on the team? Unless you're a solopreneur, could you have somebody else potentially that does some of the videos and that kind of stuff? You could. But I'd also say that, like, I don't know, I'm kind of getting to the point, Tony, where I'm like, people need to get over the whole I'm not good on video thing, because we all got on video in 2020. When COVID happened, we all got on video. It was no one had a massive problem with it. We did video calls. We all do video calls now. Like, it's like, dude, don't overcomplicate this. I think what happens is people try to read a script, or they try to get like, all right, here's the camera. I'm going to try to say something really impactful. I've never done this before. Oh my gosh, this is so hard. I'm not good on video. It's like, well, maybe try doing it conversation or interview style. Maybe having one of your colleagues or a partner or somebody else interview and ask you questions, so it's more conversational, so you show up a little bit more authentic. So I would explore some things first, but I don't know if people really care that you're the most charismatic or the greatest on video. If you're answering the questions they want to get answered as a customer, and you're saying, hey, you're on our website now, probably curious what our pricing's like, or you're probably curious how we work with customers. can I take just 45 minutes and screen share and show you some things I think would be helpful before you book a call and end up figuring out that maybe we're not the right fit anyways? Awesome. Let me show you some things. Like these are simple FAQ videos, right? Those are selling for you. That's the 24/7 sales rep, the FAQ videos, the pricing videos, the how we work with client videos. I even have a video now where when someone books a call with me, they fill out a form and then they get a video right away and says, hey, thanks so much for booking some time with me. I'm excited to chat with you. I just wanted to point out a couple things. Here's what to expect on the call. Here's some content you probably want to check out before you hop on the call, like pricing and things like that. And then here's what's going to happen after the call. I'll see you soon. It's a minute-long video, right? So, and then you've got your social media videos and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I hope that maybe helps or sheds some perspective on things.
Yeah. Well, and I think the key takeaway there is even in your own story, you didn't necessarily start off as being like really great on camera. Like you got it because you had so many reps there. And so I think like the thing I wish to convey too through this episode is I think anybody can be good on camera or can be like naturally talented if they just get the practice. It's not that complicated because you have conversations all the time. Like you made a great point. We're on video calls all the time. Why is that any different than trying to record for LinkedIn?
Right. It's like, dude, you're going to be on calls. You're going to be talking to customers. I mean, we all have to communicate. Yes, we all got to communicate in life. That is a fact. No one's asking you to be a YouTube star or TikTok famous or an influencer that has 1 million followers. No one's asking you to do that. All we're asking is to maybe explain some things for 30, 60 seconds on video that would help a customer, that would help you build trust and credibility with the customer and help them make a better buying decision. And that's it.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, Alex, I hope you don't mind if I ask a little bit of a spicy question.
Please.
It's spicy
because
spicy. Today you posted on LinkedIn about this very topic. So I was like, ooh, this is going to be good.
Cool.
And it has to do with ROI. It's like the cringiest thing I know many of my marketing friends are just like, stop, don't ask me about ROI. But I would be not doing my job as a fractional CFO if I did not at least bring this up in our interview. So one thing I'm really curious about from your perspective, and I know what you shared on the video today, but in your experience with video content, how would you even go about measuring ROI when the benefits typically aren't immediately visible?
I almost break it down like if you're thinking about ROI with marketing, you have to kind of categorize it into 2 categories. One would be, what are the things that we're going to put into place that will help generate the second category of results? So when we're working with a company, right, 7 to 8 figure business, we come in and we say on that left-hand side, my left, we say, what are the things we can actually check off and do and put in place that will help us get the other side of the ROI, the results? And that could be things like building out a system and process that allows us to create content efficiently, automating some things in that process, hiring and building out and training the content team, video editor, social media manager, content director, coming up with a really solid strategy and looking at the LinkedIn profile, making sure we got paths to conversions, building out an email list, a lead magnet. It could be a lot of different things, building out the podcast. These are all things that we could look after 30 days or 45 days and say, we've accomplished a lot. And we've done this the right way from our background and what we know about this to where it's probably going to lead to results if you keep doing it. It's just a question of when, it's not if. And then the other side, yeah, I mean, I think you should be asking what the ROI is. The problem comes when CEOs are like, you're 5 videos in, you're like, what's the ROI of our videos? We posted 5 videos on LinkedIn in the last 2 days. It's like nothing, because it's not 5 videos. Nothing miraculous is going to happen. This is not like pay per click where it's like, you're not spending money to run an ad or run a video. This is organic social marketing and content. So you do got to give it some time. But what I look at, and I'll break this second category down into 2 subcategories. One is qualitative feedback. So I want to know, like we're working with a company right now, in the first month, they're getting a lot of really high qualitative feedback, meaning potential customers and partners and even colleagues in the industry are saying, wow, I loved your post the other day where you broke down how you tackled this. I've never heard it that way before. Or, hey, that sheet you shared the other day, that guide that you shared in the video, that really helped us overcome something that we haven't been able to overcome. Or, hey, I took your video and I shared it with our CEO. I think we should implement something like this. To me, those are all positive qualitative signs that should lead to the quantitative, which is the other part, which is, are we getting impressions, engagement, new followers, inbound leads, meetings, new clients, and then revenue? But we can't expect that to happen in the first 15 days. That's probably within 90 days. Some of that stuff, we see a lot of that start happening, but really
Yep.
6 months and a year, it's really going to take off. So
Yeah.
if you quit at 90 days, you may be on that threshold where you're just now starting to see it. And then you're like, I don't know if it's really right. So I think you got to go into it with a long-term mentality, but there's a lot of really good, metrics that you can look at. It's just not as like, paid ads. It's just very like, here's what we spent and here's who we got in front of and here's how many times and here's how many clicks we got. Certainly there's some of that with organic, but you're building brand. It's not like, what's the ROI of you doing this podcast? Well, there are things, but also it's like, well, getting in front of potential customers every week is probably a pretty damn good idea. Don't you think? Like being in the social media feeds of where our customers are at every day, does that not sound like a good idea? I mean, why do you go to conferences? Can you directly tie the ROI before the conference? You probably can't, but probably while you're there, you're going to build relationships and meet people and have follow-ups. And I think it's very similar on social with content.
Yeah. Well, and if I can share a dirty little secret, as a fractional CFO, as a finance person, there are 2 reasons why people ask for ROI. First reason is because they want to genuinely compare between 2 exclusive, like mutually exclusive opportunities. And then number 2, they want to justify what their gut says about a particular path. For the first one, that only happens like 0.5% of the time. And then like 99.5% of the time, it's really, they just want to justify what their gut is telling them about a certain thing. And so I know as well as anybody else, most of the time the ROI discussion is mostly just about assuaging their own, gut feel of a particular pathway. So I hear that. I get that.
Well, and I think part of it to me, if you're a buyer, it's like you want to know if someone has a plan.
Yeah.
If you ask me, how do you gauge ROI of video content? And I say like, well, it's just kind of like you got to post the videos and, it's building brand, it takes a while. You can't really pinpoint it. Like if that's all I said, you'd be like, dude, this sounds like kind of wishy-washy. But if I'm saying, hey, there's 2 categories, here's how we measure it. And then even when on the category, there's qualitative, there's quantitative, we're tracking things every week as we go to see how we're improving and we're looking at metrics. And like, I think a lot of times I just want to know there's a plan.
Yeah. And it's a good thing that you brought up that I hadn't really thought to consider as part of the package for the ROI when it comes to video is, especially for an engagement like what people would be working with you guys on, sometimes it's a matter of building in the processes that make it more efficient to conduct the thing.
Totally.
So you might still be getting the same amount of reach, but now it's less expensive because you have automations in there, you have a better tailored process, and you've cut out a lot of the fluff and the non-value adds.
Yeah. Or it's the, building out the team, right? Like maybe you're paying an expensive rate for an editor or you didn't have an editor. And so somebody was doing it that should not be editing videos. And now you have an editor that's abroad, that's affordable, that does a great job. It's been trained. I mean, if you're like, I think most companies, at least over the next few years, are going to be doing video, are going to be doing content. I don't think there's many that just don't think that that's important at all. Yeah. So you should start thinking about building a team, at least if it's a fractional one or if it's a nimble, small, whatever, broad, whatever it is, like you've got to start thinking about that. So having that team put in place, there's a lot of value in that. Process and systems, a lot of value in that. Having a concrete strategy that's proven, like there's a lot of value in that. Yeah. And then when you have all those things, typically the results come.
Yeah, that is really good. Are there any vanity metrics that you would caution people against being too focused on for video?
Yeah, I would say that I would say it's about intentional attention. So I was on a call today and I brought up the fact that we were working with a customer and he's, a month and a half in and he's got over 1 million impressions in the last 90 days. And he's like, I don't really care about impressions and likes and that kind of stuff. And I go, well, I don't either if they're random. But we can look at the audience on LinkedIn and we can see what is the demographic, what are the job titles that are seeing his posts, and the top 5 are his top 5 targets. So it's like, I know, and the same with mine, they're all founders, CEOs, presidents, owners. Okay, well, I'm not just reaching the vanity metrics are only vanity metrics when it's vanity content. So if the way I would caution it is like, if you're just putting out content to try to get attention and exposure, and I look at your content and I go, what is the plan here? Who are you trying to make an impact on? There's no consistency. You're talking about this one day and then your dog the next day and then your daughter the next day. And it's like, then occasionally you talk about your business and being at a conference and like, yeah, I'm performing. Yeah, but it's not positioning you as a key person of influence in your industry. It's not positioning you as a go-to expert where you say, I need to work with that person because they can solve our problems. So I would caution just a random attention, but if it's an intentional intention, I'm all for it. Let's rack that stuff up.
That's so good. Yeah. So the vanity metric, it's only vanity when it's untethered from intentionality.
Correct.
Man, that's
correct.
Good.
And I
That's
know a lot of people that fall down that route. Like, hey,
mm-hmm.
this has worked. I got a lot of attention on my picture post or this or that on LinkedIn. It's like they keep going down the rabbit hole. It's like, dude, you're just chasing the
Yeah.
dopamine. And like, I tried posting a video. It was like around my expertise. It didn't get as good as engagement. It's like, yeah, because it's more niche and that's okay. Stop
Yeah.
just focusing on the high impressions and like
Mm-hmm.
really try to drill in that niche. You'll win long term.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen this too in my own industry, which is typically there's a pathway that I think a lot of fractional CFOs or accountants will go down, which is that they will follow the impressions, they'll follow the vanity metrics to their own detriment. Because what
Yeah.
happens is by and large, LinkedIn's algorithm is going to put you in front of other people who are like you, but you're not necessarily selling to those people. And so what they'll do is they'll try to chase, like you said, kind of chase some of those vanity metrics, and then continue to create content that effectively just completely alienates them from their true ICP. And before you know it, they really only have one other option except for to monetize the crowd that's in front of them, which is basically, I'm just going to teach you guys how to be a good accountant or a good fractional CFO. And I'm sure the same thing is to be said for software developers or marketing agencies and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly, man. Yeah. And if you put out like only entertaining content or only motivational stories, cool, you're building up an audience, you're getting engagement. Guess what people want to see? More of that.
Hmm.
So the moment you start putting out your actual good content that's targeted towards your customers, they're like, I don't come to this guy or this gal for that. I thought
Hmm.
they're posting the entertaining stuff, or I thought they're posting the motivational family stuff. Like that's what I
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
So it's like, be careful with what you put out because you're going to attract more of that.
Yeah. That's right. Would you mind sharing? I know you've already shared a couple of examples, but any other things that could come to mind in an instance where your own video content significantly impacted your agency's client acquisition and retention or retention?
I mean, acquisition, it's like how we win all of our customers almost
Hmm.
outside of referrals. I mean, that video as the 24/7 sales rep is working for us all the time. So, I mean, we get leads from YouTube, TikTok, heavy on LinkedIn, especially now with the new TikTok style video feed. And then we do email and we do, obviously referrals and other sites. But from a retention standpoint, I would say I think video is great from a retention standpoint. Video is also underrated when it comes to nurturing pipeline clients or
Mm.
prospects, meaning that I may have talked to someone 6 months ago.
Hmm.
And if it weren't for my content showing up in their feed every single day, because I'm driving it to them, right? And sometimes multiple times a day,
Hmm.
they may have forgotten about me or going to another option or this or that. But because they're getting my emails weekly, because they're seeing my videos in the feed, I am staying top of mind. And I'm not only just staying top of mind for like generating awareness, I'm actually continuing to level them up. I'm continuing to teach them about new things that are happening and sharing new insights and sharing customer success stories. And they're saying, wow, this guy is really making an impact.
Hmm.
Like, why aren't we doing this? Y'all, why have we not worked with this team? Right.
Hmm.
So I think from that standpoint, it's huge. Retention, I think it's good too, because it's just more touch points with customers, right? If they're seeing your content every day, they almost feel like they're getting that extra kick of value from your content. They're like, I'm glad I'm working with this person. They know their stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, acquisition 100%, but even from a retention and nurturing standpoint, I would say they're huge too.
Hmm. Yeah. We've talked about some other metrics that go with this, but are there any financial metrics that you typically, for your agency, will typically track when it comes to the video content in your own agency?
Just revenue. I mean, the two big ones I look at is how many meetings have we booked, inbound leads, meetings booked, clients won, revenue. I mean, that's really it. That's then the top up, right? So
Hmm.
I can look at, last quarter, I can say, all right, we booked, 70% of our leads came from LinkedIn, 15 came from YouTube, and 10% came from TikTok, whatever it might be. And so that gives me a good metric to say, because anytime someone books a call, which is how they come to meet with us, they have to fill out, how did you first discover me? And so I
Hmm.
have that question. So I can see every single meeting I have. I can go back and look and say, oh, they booked this because they found us on LinkedIn or they found us a YouTube video. But then I also ask questions on the call like, hey, you found us from YouTube. Yeah, I've actually been following you on LinkedIn for about a year, but I realized you had a YouTube channel 2 months ago and I went there. Oh, got it. Okay. So
Hmm.
that's helpful. How'd you find the YouTube channel? Oh, I found it through this and this. Oh, got it. Okay. So we always want to be learning what that customer buyer journey is. But yeah, I mean, it's really just revenue and new clients.
Which, I mean, at the end of the day, that's going to be what's going to continue to grow your business and be able to
Right.
put food on the table, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that is really, really good. Well, I want to be cognizant of time. I know we're coming right up to the end of the hour, but I'm going to venture guess that, as with all the rest of your video content, as people are watching this, they're probably going to have either some questions that are going through their mind or just different ways that they're thinking, man, I'd love to engage with Alex a little bit more. What's the best way for people to follow the story of what's going on at Impacts? And also maybe even just be able to ask you questions about what you've been talking about today.
LinkedIn's where I'm most active. So I'm typically checking my DMs there, at least once a day and responding unless I'm getting pitched or it's just like completely irrelevant. But if you say, hey, I saw you on Tony's podcast and you got a question, I'll answer you back. That's a good place. If you go to my LinkedIn profile and you go to the featured content section, or you go to my website, you'll see it right there. There's an opt-in for the email newsletter. I send out once a week, and it's like really high value stuff that I don't share on social. It's kind of the behind the scenes stuff. So that would be good to get on there. Those would be probably the two places. We have the podcast, Founder Talk podcast. If you're a founder and you want to learn about other founders that have certain areas of expertise, and we share that back. And then there's a YouTube channel which we put out long form, highly educational videos about how to grow on LinkedIn or build your video content strategy out and things like that.
Yeah, and I will just say, having perused through your YouTube channel, that's like some Alex Hormozy type stuff you got going on there. So it's rich. It's not a lot of fluff that you got going on in there. So it's good
I
stuff.
appreciate that. Yeah. Yep. That's what it's for. Depth.
Yeah. So I'm hearing you say though, follow on LinkedIn. You post a lot, and that's great. Love that.
Yeah. 10 videos a week now.
How many videos?
10 videos a week just on
Nice.
LinkedIn.
I love it. Yeah. So going out on LinkedIn and then also signing up for that newsletter. Do you have any, I guess, like, let's say we're a 7 or 8 figure founder is listening to this and they're like, I think I'm ready to, maybe try to work with you guys. Do you have like an introductory offer or something that you are, I guess, like a package deal that you're currently selling that you're promoting at the moment?
So we do, our middle package is our most popular. It's called our co-pilot program. It's where we really work with the company. We kind of embed ourselves in the company. All of our pricing is on the website. If you go on the top pricing tab, you'll see it right on there. The introduction package is like, I don't have any courses or anything like that. I give it all away for free on YouTube, but the introduction package would be the Video Content Accelerator program, which is just like a not as hands-on version of the co-pilot, but it's a game changer. I mean, we'll come into your business, build out the strategy for you, your video, social media, your everything that you need to be successful, show you how to build out the content team, the process and system. We got a lot of automation AI now that's coming. We're partnering with some other companies. So we got some really exciting stuff coming soon. The game is changing quickly. So that would be the kind of the introduction, or I guess kind of step A, to getting in with us. But I really think that the co-pilot one's our favorite because we can really, we like to get in there, man, and really make an impact and see the success built out long-term. So.
I love it. I love it. Well, Alex, thank you so much for taking the time. I've learned a lot, and I think our listeners have as well. This has been great.
Appreciate it, Tony. It's a great conversation. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you to our listeners. If you found value in our episode today, please leave us a review and tell your friends about us. If you're interested in being a guest on our show, as a digital agency owner, or maybe somebody with insights that can help digital agencies grow, head over to our website to learn more at equip.com/podcast guest. That's ACCQUIP.com/podcast guest.